All right, welcome back to another episode of Goodman versus Gottlieb. It's Tuesday afternoon. Huge slate tonight. And we'll discuss a couple of big ones last night where Duke goes on the road and gets a win in Blacksburg. But let's start with the Houston Cougars, Doug, and Kelvin Sampson's team. Number one in all the metrics, other than the AP poll, but all the metrics love the Cougars. They've won 5 in a row now after a 2-game losing skid that a lot of people were kind of questioning. Are they in that upper echelon? Jamal Shedd's looked terrific. You know, obviously LJ Cryer's kind of bounced back from that slump that he had that coincided really with their 2-game losing skid. Are you ready to put Houston in the same tier as UConn and Purdue, Doug?
Yeah. From this perspective, I think they can win a national championship. Now, you and I discussed this we discussed this last night on Field of 68, which of course you can see right here on Stadium. In that every superhero has his kryptonite, and theirs is offensively they're just okay, but it's more than just their defense and their rebounding. It's the competitive nature. Jamal Shedd last night was amazing. They're face guarding LJ Cryer wherever he went. I mean, his reputation is established in the Big 12 as an elite, prolific shooter scorer, and so Texas wanted to just take him out of the game. Jamal Shedd has what it takes when needed. He doesn't average that many points, but last night he took over. So, yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I think Purdue has an outstanding team, and they totally accept their roles. But I don't know what it would look like against that type of defense, tenacity, and rebounding to match. And then you look at UConn, and again, I think UConn has a greater diverse array of offensive weaponry. And now with Klingon being back, they have rim protection, and they're good defensively. But again, the overall athleticism, toughness, they also have the shooting with LJ Cryer. Yeah, I'm okay putting Houston on that list. We know what their downfall is. They're very average offensively, but they're top of the heap in so many other things. And how they won last night, and even how they forced overtime, which is miss shot, get a rebound, throw it inside, get an and-one, get a bucket. I thought they showed me a lot, regardless of whatever you think about Texas, the ability to get a road win in a hostile environment against a talented team and put up 76 points. I think was really, really impressive. I put Houston on that upper tier.
I don't think I put them in that first tier. I think there's two teams that stand alone right now, and that is Purdue and UConn in whatever order you want to put them in, especially after I watched UConn absolutely dismantle a Sean Miller coach team by 43 points the other day in Hartford. I wish they have Terrence Arsenault, who's out for the season earlier this year. Talented, came off the bench, gave him something of a kind of a scoring threat that I thought was going to get better and better. I like Emmanuel Sharp, and I love the fact that Jamal Shedd has kind of become more and more assertive, looking for his own because he needs to. Right, in 4 of the last 5 games, Doug, Houston's put up at least 74 points. So the only game really they struggled to score in the last couple of weeks was against UCF, where honestly, didn't matter because they didn't allow UCF to score at all. So I like this Houston team. I just don't know if they can manufacture. I think it's hard for them to manufacture points where UConn and Purdue have so many weapons that they can count on. Where to me, if Jamal Shedd doesn't have a good game or LJ Cryer doesn't have a good game, I just don't know how they get in the 70s. They've gotten both those guys rolling over the last couple of weeks. And when they're rolling, they can beat anybody. But when they're not, they got to win that game in the high 50s, early 60s, low 60s. And I'm not sure you're going to win 6 straight in the NCAA tournament that way.
I'm not either. But we haven't seen Purdue win 2 straight, with similar lineup, Yeah. So again, and UConn, they were great last year. They waltzed through the field. But we've also seen them struggle at times in Big East play. And I also, if we're honest, last year they wasn't through any fault of their own. They avoided most of the top seeds along their path. So it wasn't like they played strength on strength. But like again, we have to just like we have to find 68 teams to fill the field. We're not just going to have one or two favorites. Like Houston is absolutely on that list. And I'm interested to see what it looks like when they match up against Kansas because they have so much more depth than KU. And you know, it's like we don't like them. Like KU has gotten 2 points off their bench the last two games combined. Right. So and like again, my takeaway watching last night was, holy cow, is that league so much better than all the rest of the leagues? And I'll tell you, I think I've figured out why. I think the guard play is better in those leagues in the Big 12 than it is in any league, and it's not really close. I think the coaching is outstanding in the SEC and the Big 10. I think the ACC, a lot of it's about funding, but more than anything, like, again, does the world know about Jamal?
Yeah.
Right?
I
like,
agree
go
with
look through all these teams because I was having this conversation. I really like tonight. Javon Small plays for Oklahoma State. He'd been struggling the first couple games, played well last game, and you and I have discussed like I think he's a really really good point guard, a transfer from East Carolina. But then a friend of mine asked me like, okay, where does he rank in the Big 12? I'm like, wow, that's a really tough question because. Hell, Iowa State's got a hell of a point guard, right? Kansas got one that's different. But Dwan's won a national championship and more of a pass first guy, right? You look at last night, like Hunter had a huge turnover last night for Texas, but Hunter and A. Smith are two really talented guards. Just kind of go through the list. Javon McCollum's had an incredible start to his career at OU, fifth-year transfer from Siena. The point is that I was trying to figure out why is this league better than other leagues. I think it's not as athletic overall as the SEC and not as thick and strong and really well coached as the Big 10, but I think it's got mixtures of those two, and then it's got great point guard play. And I think that's going to challenge these guys, and I think it's one of the reasons they play well out of conference. So, look, we all know what Houston's issue is. But we've seen Kelvin get to a Final Four at Houston. We've seen him get to a Final Four at Oklahoma. The offense isn't ornate. It isn't necessarily pretty, especially when you take Cryer out of the game. But they can win a road game kind of without him, and they can play great second shot basketball. And we know they can defend. And, yeah, I'm with you. You lose a bench player, but somebody else steps up, and they really do have pretty good depth.
That's a great point. Honestly, a point I hadn't thought about, but you're right on. Point guard play, you know where I stand with it. Not because I'm talking to you, but I think it all starts with the point guard, and that's where Duke comes in, right? They went in Blacksburg last night, and I'm not sure they have like a natural point guard, but like Tyrese Proctor has come back from this injury and looked like a different player. He can facilitate. He can make shots when he needs to. Is he the player we thought he was going to be this year? No, but he was averaging almost 20 points a game in the previous four leading up to last night, and he was solid last night. Jeremy Roach was solid last night. They've got Filipowski. They've got Mark Mitchell. They go into Blacksburg, which, again, Mike Young's team's not great this year, but it's not easy to win in Blacksburg against a well-coached Virginia Tech team that's got veteran guards, and that's what you did. And they finished the month with just one loss right now, Doug. And I think people are sleeping on Duke a little bit because we've talked about their upside throughout the year. I think they're finally starting to hit their stride a little bit, get healthy, figure out their roles. And, oh, by the way, you got Tyrese Proctor back to close to the Tyrese Proctor we thought he was going to be this year.
Well, it's Tyrese Proctor and Jeremy Roach, right? Because then you have two guys that are veterans in your backcourt. And Proctor can facilitate, plus he's very good in the mid-range. And then Roach obviously can really shoot. And then it allows McCain or Caleb Foster to, like, they don't have to produce 15 or 20 a night. There'll be nights in which one or two of them give you 15 or 20 a night, right? And then you have Filipowski, who I thought did a great job of playing within himself, right? He's top of everybody's scatter report. So to me, and this, you could disagree with it. And I don't like injuries, especially, I don't want to derail anybody's career. And I know what it's like when you're coming off the bench and you're traditionally a starter, how awkward that can be. And some part of you doesn't want to play great because you don't want your coach to think you play well off the bench. But playing those two freshmen when you had injuries and they weren't playing well is going to benefit those players as well as the team. And then it seems to have motivated Proctor and Roach in that they're playing better since they're both back. And I thought Roach gained a lot without Proctor, and then Proctor has been motivated and played a lot better since he's returned from injury and had to kind of earn his spot back. So, yeah, I think Duke's in a pretty good place. Obviously, the 2 Carolina games are upcoming, starting this weekend on the road, and we'll see, because that's the type of team and they have the type of toughness that's really going to challenge Filipowski. But I'm with you. I think, we're going to do stock up and stock down. And I didn't have Duke on my list, but they definitely have stock up. And it's like, well, they're the 7th ranked team in the country. Like, yeah, but we really didn't know where to put them. And now we can start thinking about putting them in that top tier, or maybe just below that top tier.
Yeah, just because, again, they're starting to figure it out, right? And you knew it was going to take some time with these freshmen, and Filipowski's been up and down this year. Proctor was hurt. It's going to take some time with this group, but their upside is so high. There aren't a lot of teams. Again, they're probably one weakness that you worry about is interior defense as much as anything. Filipowski's, Ryan Young, they got to play 5. Neither one. Like, you'd rather flip playing the 4. Last year they had Derek Lively, who just made up for a lot of their mistakes. They don't have a guy like that, but they got to be sound defensively, and they can really, really score the ball from every single spot. You know who else scored the ball? The Wyoming Cowboys in the final 1 minute and 11 seconds against Colorado State. They came back. Jeff Linder's team came back and won in what was one of the greatest comebacks in regular season history, Doug. Again, down 11 with 1:11 to play. They force overtime. They knock off number 24 Colorado State 79-76. All right, Doug, give me the best comeback you were ever a part of on either side. Might have been one you blew. Might have been one, you ended up coming back and winning.
Honestly, like, I can't remember a college basketball comeback. We never had that big a comeback when I was at Oklahoma State. But I will tell you that in TBT, the basketball tournament, we played against the New Mexico team, and we're down 26 and going in the fourth quarter. When you get to the 4-minute mark, it's just then they have the Elam ending, which is like plus 8 points. So it's a lot. It's a high. And I remember I talked to the guys, was like, hey, you guys played AAU ball, right? We know diamond press. Like, let's just go diamond press and just helter-skelter, switch every screen, play fast, shoot threes, have fun. Like, let's go down. We're going down. Let's go down and have some fun and fight it. And we came back and won the game. There's nothing like it. But it takes 2 to tango. And that's the big thing that Colorado State is sitting there going, like, man, missed free throws, turnovers, not understanding time, score, and possession. 1:11 to go, the game should be over if you're up double digits. But it wasn't, and it wasn't just Wyoming. Colorado State played a big – and by the way, this is a huge rivalry. I don't know if people know. I forget the highway that goes from Colorado State. That goes from Foco to Laramie. And it's a great little border war there between Wyoming and Colorado State. And Laramie, obviously, everybody knows it's a mile high. That altitude hits you, but Colorado State plays at altitude, so let's not give them a pass here. That was an unbelievable comeback, but again, the takeaway is, and I know that Colorado State knows this. More games are lost than won, and yes, they hit shots, but CSU made mistakes, and I don't think it's one that keeps them out of the tournament. But you can't allow Wyoming to beat you twice. You got to learn lessons from how you lost that game.
Yeah, one, I'll give you a couple that stick out to me. One was in both were in the NCAA tournament. One was in 2016. Texas A&M was down to Northern Iowa by 12 with 44 seconds left. Remember that one? They end up forcing overtime, going to double overtime, coming back and winning that one. Again, I think it was 12 with 35 seconds left. Then me being an Arizona guy, obviously the Elite 8 game in Chicago, All-State Arena. Arizona's up 15. Lute Olson coaching. One of the final times he's got a chance to get back to the Final Four. They're up 15 with about, I think it was a little bit less than 4 minutes left. And then they don't score another field goal in regulation. Darren Williams ties the game late, and they force overtime, and they beat Arizona. And it's one that I remember talking to Coach Olson after he retired, and that one still stuck with him, Doug. Really stuck.
No question. And then we had in the national championship game 2 years ago, the great comeback by Kansas to come back and boat race North Carolina. That was amazing.
So was the one by Kansas against Memphis, if you remember.
Sure.
Years
down
ago.
Down 9.
Correct.
Yeah, down 9, 2 minutes to go. Sure.
That was crazy. I remember being courtside for that one and couldn't believe what I was seeing, because certainly it looked like Calipari and Memphis and Derrick Rose had that one absolutely won. All right, still to come, Goodman versus Gottlieb. It's time to take stock on the world of college hoops and see who's up and who's down. Find out who we're buying and who we're selling right after the break. All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb, Tuesday afternoon edition. Remember, we're in Stadium every single weekday from 1 to 1:30 Eastern. And, Doug, it's time to play stock up, stock down. Let's start with the positive vibes, and I'm going to kick it off here, and I'm going to go with Chris Mooney and the Richmond Spiders. We're coming off a win against Dayton. They were the only two undefeated teams in the A-10. Most people were not surprised that the Flyers were still undefeated, although some should be, because they lost their starting point guard Malachi Smith right before the start of the year. But Richmond, completely revamped team by Chris Mooney. He's back. He's healthy after a major health scare last year that forced him to step away for the last part of the season. And Richmond on a 10-game winning streak, Doug, and slowly inching their way up into the conversation of maybe on the bubble. They got to play at Fordham tomorrow, and then they go to VCU on Saturday. If they win both of those, Doug, telling you, we're going to see their name on the bubble, and it would be a really, really cool story because Chris Mooney, one of the real class guys in college basketball, and a guy who, again, has been through a lot health-wise over the last year.
Awesome guy. I mean, I've known Chris forever. Obviously, people don't know his background. Like son of a bus driver, so he used to ride the bus with his dad just to hang out with him at work. Of course, went to Princeton. Was a great player there. Did an awesome job when he's the head coach at Air Force. Been at Richmond forever, and through the ups and through the downs, he's just a special guy. So really happy for his success. I'll go stock up. There's a lot of talk about Iowa State and T.J. Otzelberger and the potential videoing last week, but lost in that Kansas State story is the fact that they beat Kansas, they beat Kansas State, and look, they got road wins over TCU, they got road win at BYU. Like, this is a legit team. If you can win road games in the Big 12, especially at Iowa State, like, they're physical, they rebound, they play kind of ego-free, they played with their point guard, they played without. Like, I think Iowa State that's a stock up for me. They're far better and far further along than I thought they would be at this point in the season, and they're an outside threat to win the Big 12. And we always talk about Kansas, when we talk about Houston, Iowa State with their ability to win on the road, and we know how hard it is to win in Hilton. That's a team I got their stock up on.
All right, stock down. Ohio State. Man, they were 12-2, Doug, after a terrible second half of the year last year. Looked like Chris Holtmann had kind of found their groove a little bit with Bruce Thornton being their leader. Bringing in Roddy Gale had looked really good early, and now they've lost 5 of 6, with the only win coming against Penn State at home. And now you have Illinois at home tonight, at Iowa, home Indiana, home Maryland. Okay, so you got 4 winnable games, Doug, but it starts tonight. Tonight might be the most important game of Chris Holtmann's tenure in Columbus. Agree?
Yeah, I do. And look, I did the radio call for the Indiana game, and despite the fact that Roddy Gale couldn't hit the broadside of the barn, they still had a shot to win that game on the road. And I think both of us think he's a hell of a coach and a really good dude. But it's a business, and at some point you got to win games, and those are winnable games. So this is where it gets you. Of these 4 games, they got to win 3. They got to win 3. And it really helps if you beat in Illinois tonight.
That's your resume win, right?
It becomes your second quad 1 win, and then you can worry about everything else, right? You can't, because if you lose this one and the other ones, again, on paper appear to be easier, right? But Iowa's thinking the same thing. Like, hey, we just got a couple big wins. We got Ohio State coming in. We can win this game, and so on and so forth. So. My stock down for Ohio State. I'm with you. I would have thought Bruce Thornton in year 2, they would have been better than they've been, and they just have not. We'll see what they do tonight. My stock down is for Texas. I know. Well, I mean, they didn't win last night. They played well, but they didn't win. And then we start to factor in, like, okay, it's Houston, top 10 team. You go to overtime, fine. But then you compile it with the fact that you lost to Central Florida after having a 17-point lead at home, right? They lost to West Virginia. And that, by the way, was before West Virginia had all their dudes back. They got all their guys back. But regardless, like, you drop those games. You really survived Baylor. Probably should have lost that one. And again, we don't like – but we haven't gotten to the meat of the road game schedule, and Texas is losing home games. And then here's another part, and – I know that Big 12 people are like, well, you're an Oklahoma State guy. There's nobody in Gallagher. That's fine. Okay, Oklahoma State is in last place. People don't show up at Oklahoma for home games. Just the Thunder is all the rage. But Texas has an upper deck. That's not a huge building, and I like what they've done. They have these screens that cover the upper deck when they don't want it open.
Right.
And they have videos play. It's a really, really cool. Moody is a cool building.
Yes.
Okay, but you're playing Houston as a top 10 team, and you're Texas in a brand new arena that's not terribly big, and you got to cover the upper deck. I don't love it. I don't love it, because the whole thing on hey, why we're leaving the Big 12 is, well, it's easier to sell tickets when it's Florida and LSU and Kentucky and whatever for any sport. Like, you can't sell tickets for Houston? They're a top 10 team. It's all rival in your building.
Yeah.
So
no doubt.
I think everybody feels talented team, but man, something's missing that they're not winning these games.
All right, time for buzzer beaters, and we'll go to a team that will draw well tonight and will fill it up, and that is the Tennessee Volunteers, number 5 in the country. South Carolina and Lamont Paris has done a hell of a job. Listen, I saw them a week or so ago. They took down Kentucky, but now they go to Knoxville, and they're 14.5-point dogs in this one. Can they win? Can they keep it close? How about that one?
I think they can keep it close. I think it's a hard one to win. And look, Tennessee's different, with Dalton Connect. Like he can explode. They have some offensive explosiveness that they haven't had recently. So I think Tennessee wins the SEC. I think they win tonight, but I do think that South Carolina buttresses that big win over the weekend into an outstanding performance tonight.
I'm with you there. All right. Texas Tech goes to TCU. Great Big 12 battle. I mean, they're every night, right? The Red Raiders are right now first in the Big 12. Can they get another road win? This would be huge for Grant McCasland.
This would be huge. And TCU's been kind of up and down, right? Like, again, probably should have lost to Oklahoma State. They've had some survivals. Even this weekend they end up surviving. But I think TCU wins this game. It's a very good rebound team. They're great in transition. And Tech has had a lot of kind of survivor games, even at home. I like TCU tonight and the points.
Yeah, I'm going to take Texas Tech in the points. Last one, quickly. Great game. Marquette at Villanova. Doug, quickly, who wins?
Nova's last stand. They get a win. They have to have a win tonight.
I'm going Marquette on the road with a win. We'll see you tomorrow. Goodman versus Gottlieb. Thanks for joining us.